So I want to welcome everyone to episode 16 on our Trust After Trauma podcast. And we created this podcast to really offer heartfelt, beautiful beings that are here to share their journeys, their stories, their ways that they either came back to trust in a new way after an experience that any one of us would call traumatic. And this is really an opportunity for us to open our hearts and listen from a deeper place for the different tools, the different direction, the different inspiration that each one of our guests offer. And today we have a very special guest, Miss Rosie Aiello. Aiello.
It's Italian.
I
Aiello.
know. I always try to say it different ways, and I know it's ILO. So anyway, I'm so glad that you're with us here today. And we have a really special topic that we're going to be bringing to you. And it's a journey of distrust to true love. We're going to be delving into different transformative journey from distrust to truly discovering true love. And Rosie, I'm going to give you her little bio because she's such a special woman on this planet at this time, and I'm so grateful to know her. Rosie is a women's life and transformative coach, and after escaping a 25-year abusive relationship in the Middle East, Rosie Aiello rebuilt her life from trauma to triumph. Now an international speaker, best-selling author, and award-winning entrepreneur, she empowers women who've survived toxic relationships to reclaim their voice, confidence, joy, and discover kind love. Rosie, who co-founded with her daughter Sunny National Love is Kind Day, July 27th, mark it on your calendars, is on a global mission to inspire 100 million women and children to believe that they deserve kind, safe love. She's been featured on television, Inspired Conversations, Reinvention Radio, and numerous other podcasts, summits, and stages around the world. And 10% of her net profits are contributed to the Love is Kind Fund to support women and children survivors of domestic violence. She holds an MBA and several certifications, including life coaching and neuro-linguistics programming. She's a big fan of hugs, virtual and otherwise. So here's a great big virtual hug for you. I'm so
Thank you.
you're with us
Receiving it.
today, Rosie. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad we got to fit your busy schedule into ours and have you here today to share your beautiful story of inspiration. And so putting your voice into this space, I would love for you to share maybe a defining moment that you knew that there was another way to look at life other than the reality you were living in that moment.
There were many defining moments, but the most critical one that really was the catalyst for everything, truly, was the day that we were living in Lebanon, to get people into the right frame of mind where we were. So we were living in Lebanon, and my daughter was attending the American University of Beirut. She was a junior at that university. And she came home one afternoon, just charged up the stairs, ran into my office and said, "Mom, you have to get me away from my abusive father." And I had read, I would say another key defining moment was several years before that, where I read a book, The Verbally Abusive Relationship by Patricia Evans, with whom I became really good friends. So between those two things, and I had told my daughter at the time I read the book, that this is what your father is doing, because I didn't know. I'd been married 18 years before I even knew I was in an abusive relationship. I had no clue. I just thought I wasn't good enough. And I didn't want her to feel that way. So as soon as I found out, I wanted to share that with her. So
Mhm.
there are these critical defining moments, but the one that got me pushed forward was that one, because I would have never in a million years left without my daughter.
Right.
If
Right.
she didn't ever wanted to leave, I would have just still been there. I would have not have abandoned her ever.
Yeah. And what were some of your first steps to quote unquote freedom?
Uh, well, this is interesting. It's funny how your background comes into play. Before I was in corporate finance in Silicon Valley, and I did strategic planning. That was part of my job. So I knew how to plan, and that was helpful because when you are escaping like that,
Mm.
on a scale of 1 to 10 for stress, it's probably like 110 because you're trying to not let anybody know you're hiding. And so I started to develop a plan. And I also, not even knowing what the word mantra meant, I didn't have any of that. I didn't know personal development. I didn't know spiritual. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know. I had no education in our awareness of that. But I created what I later learned were mantras. And they were, my daughter and I deserve a happy and joyful life. And I have one life to live, and I'm going to live it. And I don't have to be a martyr. I deserve a happy life. I said those probably 100 times a day to get through the whole planning process of this escape,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt guilty, even though we were being so mistreated. I felt such heavy guilt. And when I created the escape, I had help with my brother here in the United States. I There was no plan B. There was only plan A. And I knew it was going to work. I didn't know how. I just knew. We were talking before about you just know. It didn't enter my consciousness that it was not going to work.
Right.
So that was sort of the beginning uh, of really extricating myself from that relationship. It's very, I can give you more details if you want of how the escape went, but it was quite dramatic on how it unfolded.
Yeah.
And I'm proud that what my daughter and I did.
As you should be. I mean, what an experience. And I also just want to say for the listeners, I've been working with women in our nonprofit, Grace's Place Foundation, that actually uh, created this podcast for women who have gone through experiences of abuse or trauma of all kinds. Um, and you're an intelligent woman. And how you didn't know is also just another red flag to all of us that it's not the intellect that is involved in this. It's our emotional body that is really so um blinded by any form of abuse, emotional, mental, psychological, financial, physical, spiritual. I mean, we've identified 82 forms of abuse, because we just keep digging, because there's so much to understand. And so today our topic is called A Journey of Distrust
Mhm.
to Finding True Love. So can you tell us your journey of I mean, we're kind of unpacking and understanding
Yes.
distrust. If you could, share a little bit about what that felt like, how you handled that and dealt with that for how long, and then
Mhm.
and so maybe you want to, share a little bit about that.
I'd love to. I can remember. So after we landed in San Francisco. I'm originally from California, from the San Francisco Bay Area. So I remember walking the streets of San Francisco and being on the corner waiting for the light to change so I could walk across the street and just hearing conversations behind me. And if I heard men talking behind me, I could just feel the hair on my body. I could just feel I was tensed up. When I arrived, I didn't trust any man. I believed that all men were going to hurt me. I just put all men in one big bucket, except for my brother, and of course, my, close friends and relatives that I knew from before. But everybody, every strange man was a bad man, just lock, stock, and barrel. I just couldn't. And so that was that feeling. It was quite strong. Even when I was on the computer and doing research back then, you do a research and then there'd be these ads popping up and there'd be an ad of a man and I had to change. I had to get out of that page. I would just leave the page because I couldn't stand to see a man. I couldn't stand it. That's how deep the pain was for me.
Right.
But I slowly, I had a trauma therapist, a therapist who was very skilled in trauma therapy, which I think is very important when you're coming out of something really severe, like I did, because our brains are rewired in this. And I started to get support, which I think is one of the key things is I didn't do the escape alone and I didn't do the healing alone. This is not this is not a journey where you think you can just read a book or watch a movie or watch a video or hear somebody else. You have to do the work and it needs guidance. And so she helped me a lot. I was also on antidepressants. I want people to understand the journey here of the trauma. And mind you, while I'm going through my trauma, I'm dealing with my daughter going through her trauma as well. Right.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to talk about hers because so I can just focus, but all of that's going on at the same time. And I was very, very much afraid of him. And then I just started to, with that little bit of healing through the with the therapist. And then when I landed, it's like I hadn't been working in the United States for almost 25 years. I landed during the Great Recession. I was in my 50s, so I was starting over at an older age. And who would want me? And all the stories.
Right.
So I had to find a job. Well, I couldn't find a job because it's like there was no work. And it's like, well, you have so much, all these languages, you have all these skills. Like, oh, and I'm just going to walk up and say, hire me. So it was too hard to write my resume, no joke. And I started my own business. That forced me to get engaged with people. So that was also helpful, getting engaged with people. I all this time now, then I went to, business coaches. I was introduced to somebody else. So that started me on the personal development side when I got into business coaching, right? From a learning from a business coach. So I'm just showing the steps that I took that kind of kept pushing me forward and pushing me forward.
Right.
And I got to a point when I did my very first website all by myself. I learned how to do a website and I was afraid to publish it because if I published it, then my ex well, he wasn't my ex at that time even, was going to see it. And I felt so vulnerable. I was really scared because leaving him wasn't the end by any stretch.
Right.
And my daughter stood next to me. She goes, "What are you going to do, Mom? Are you going to let him rule you? Are you going to be afraid of him? You have all these missions to do." And I looked up because she was like, I looked like she's right here because I remember she was standing to my left. And okay. And she just coached me into it. And I hit that button, publish. So these were all baby steps, but the whole time I'm working on myself. The whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you say that part of your journey uh, of distrust to true love was also even a distrust of yourself?
Oh, 100%. Well, and that was part of the work. So, and that's the work, like what I do with my clients. It's all internal work. I had to, and they always say, well, be your authentic self. That was something I heard when I came here. I didn't know what that meant. I had to rediscover who I was, because when you're in these extensive abusive relationships, your brain gets rewired and you have a whole, your reality is just flipped on its head. So what is reality? Who am I? He told me for decades, oh, you don't have a pretty smile, don't smile. He also told it to my daughter. How cruel, right? And so when I went there and I would go to these meetings and say, oh, people would say you have a beautiful smile. I thought, you're in my head. I said, you're lying to me. So as I was learning about who was responsible, I wasn't responsible for what happened, but I sure am responsible for what happens in my life going forward. And I've always been a forward thinker as well. So yes, just I couldn't try. I had to learn that, oh, what is a healthy, what are the signs of an unhealthy relationship? What are the signs of a healthy relationship? Oh, I learned how to recognize my feelings and really integrate those feelings. So I wasn't being reactive. I was being aware. This doesn't feel right. Listen to my gut and my intuition. All these things were creating trust within myself and creating boundaries, which I had none. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't, I mean, I suppose I had some, but you, I didn't remember. I didn't know how to do a boundary. And that has been absolutely critical to being able to trust myself and trust others, because boundaries is all about teaching others how you want to be treated.
And so you said that was um back in the recession. So are you talking about 2008,
Yes. Yeah, I arrived in 2009.
2009, so 15, 16 years ago now.
Correct. Correct.
And in that span of, you know, escaping, coming and, getting yourself grounded and settled. I do a lot of my work as a spiritual life coach is working with the chakras. So like you get grounded, then you get creative, then you get into your solar plex and your self-confidence. And so the journey of your finding yourself, really, I mean, Rosie, my heart is just, there with you. And finding a way to know yourself, maybe for the first time as an adult.
Completely, Janet.
Yeah. What would you like to share about that?
It was, it was really astonishing how little I knew about myself, and how in the past I hadn't listened to my intuition, how I really didn't know my values. We have values, but I hadn't really written them down. I hadn't really looked at them. I picked them up like seashells from the seashore. Everything was through osmosis. Nothing was intentional. This is what I want. And this is why the declaration, and then when later on, my daughter and I formed the company, was love is kind. All I wanted was to be treated with kindness. It still is to this day a primary value, kindness. And I wanted to realize that kindness in a relationship, and I would not accept anything less. So I learned how to be treated. how I wanted to be treated because I knew what I didn't want. I still had to learn what healthy relationships were. And so all of this is developing the trust within myself and that path to finding kind love, which is what I always call it, kind love. Because and the reason I say kind love, Janet, is that for women who've been in abusive relationships, the word love can be very triggering. Oh, I hit you because I loved you. I said this and did this because I love you. It's because I love you. So it's like, yeah, I don't trust love, right? So I want to redefine it, that real love is kind. It
Yeah.
always is. The real love is not hurtful.
Yeah.
It
And like
doesn't demean you.
it's Corinthians, it's kind.
Love is kind and it's not hurtful. It's patient. That's part of the Corinthians too. Although our term is not from that. It's not from the Corinthians, but the basis of it is still there. The whole meaning, the whole sentence is love is kind, not terrorizing. And because if you're in an abusive relationship, you feel like you're terrorized. I lived in the Middle East for 25 years. I know what terror is on the outside. I know I've been under wars, I've been through fires, I've been, you name it. I've seen probably uh, more fire than the average soldier. So that's terror. I know terror in the skies,
Right.
but there was terror within the four walls of my home,
Yeah.
and we were scared to death.
Yeah.
And while I experienced many, you said, I can't remember, 82 different kinds of, I don't know, I don't know how many. I experienced many different kinds of abuse. And we can get through it. We
Yeah.
can get through it because your life matters. My life matters. So I had to believe that my life matters
Right.
in going forward.
Right. And for someone who might be listening and who might be, still, in those four walls, what advice would you give them today?
If you're still within the four walls, my heart goes out to you because I know how difficult it is, how challenging it is. And if you have children, I understand that, whether you live next door to me or you live across the continent or across the world. The first thing always, which is that's what I followed, is safety first. And it just has to be that way. I would I'm I know the time we're recording, not sure when it's going to be published, but the time of the recording, we're entering pretty soon into Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I've been referring a lot of people to the National Domestic Hotline here in the United States, but it's open to everybody. So wherever you are in the world, you can get access to that. And the thing is, if you can, I know because the abusers tend to isolate you. So it's really hard. They make it very difficult to see your friends, your family. Sometimes they control a lot of things. So everyone's situation is different, but to the extent that you can get in contact with somebody to help you, it's just so difficult to go out on your own. But I've talked to many women who've just walked out of the house and escaped and just left with
Yeah.
whatever they had. That's what happens many times.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And I love that you're talking about safety first. And, here in Big Bear, where I live, we have Doves, which is a shelter. So that's
mhm,
first. And then Grace's place is what's next. We're about education, empowerment, and empathy.
mhm,
So
mhm,
um even for the whole purpose of trust after trauma, and go back and look at some of the other topics for those of you who are listening to us today. There's a lot of different topics because there's a lot of different forms of trauma, and And I know, Rosie, you have so many dimensions to your story of trust and strength and fortitude and a woman of such empowerment. I know we're going to have you back on our show again, but for this particular topic, and I know that you and I talked as we were really scribing the
Mhm.
for it. Can you tell me why you were so clear about wanting it to say a journey from distrust to true love and what that means to you?
Oh, a journey from distrust to my words, to kind love, because that's what it is. Now you've heard my story so far, and I did the work. I learned about myself. I set boundaries. I knew what a healthy relationship looked like. I knew what the mistakes that I made before. I knew all of that. And then I set the intention. I was ready. Before it's like, I got used to men. Still as a general concept, didn't trust them very, very much, but I'm much better at it. But then I set the intention, I want to have a partner. I want to have somebody I can share my life with. So I set another intention. Very important to move forward is setting intentions. And I described him. I wrote myself a letter to myself. And in 9 months, I found the kind love of my life. And we are still together. And I, to feel that love and that joy in my heart, I just like, and I was, so let's see, 63. So again, you can find love at any age. I want to emphasize that. It can be at any age. And our love is so deep. We feel like teenagers. We've been together over 8 years, and our love just keeps growing. And it's just, and I'm still surprised. It's funny how the trauma it's not trauma because I'm over the trauma, but it's just like, wow, he didn't yell at me for that. Wow, he didn't do that. It's like, oh, I have to keep reminding, he's kind through and through. Whereas, my past, he would have yelled at me. He would have put me down. He would have insulted me. He would have this. And in the beginning of our relationship, I had my jukes up. It's like, if he said anything, I was challenging him, but he stood ground, right? He worked with me. And there's just so much love, so much kindness, so much respect, helping each other. We're a team. I just, my heart just expands when I think about him.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you put into the space set intention, because even if as we start our day, we can set an intention for the day. We can set an intention for our health and well-being. We can set an intention for, both of us are life coaches. So we know the pathway to living a life that we truly love. And I just want to clarify, and I apologize, that you did shift the words, and it's a journey of distrust to kind love.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and you know your mission, if you can share a little bit about your mission work that you started with your daughter.
Yeah, we started the Love is Kind Network. We co-founded that, and you mentioned National Love is Kind Day, and our goal is really to get this information out to help women really understand that, one, they can release the shackles of abuse, they can move forward, they can create a productive and joyful life, and they can find kind love.
Yeah.
These are all possibilities. And yes, it takes work, and it takes being open, and it takes the intention. Because if you don't want it, it's just not going to happen. We know as coaches, if they don't want to be coached, we don't want to coach them. We can't coach them. But and it may seems like it's so far. Now, when I first landed, I didn't I didn't want to look at a man, right? So obviously I didn't have finding the kind love of my life in my brain because it was not there then, right? You have to go through those steps like your Grace's what's it called? Grace's
Foundation.
yes, right. Grace's place. So, you help them with those beginning steps because again, once they get stable within who they are, then we can expand to the next step and the next step. It's all, and that's why it's a journey.
And that's why it is a journey.
And
Yes.
it's a lifelong journey of constantly growing as well.
Yeah. And I love that your movement is love is kind. And, even with my work as self-love, it's this,
Mhm.
the journey of self-love. And it's a journey. It's not a destination.
That's right.
Is every single day, many times throughout the day, there are different ways thoughts come in, and you're like, well, that wasn't very kind,
Right?
or about someone else, or about a situation, or a project, or whatever. And awareness allows us to catch ourselves and say, well, how would I change that to be more kind? Right.
Right.
So I just want to, thank you again and offer like um how can we stay in touch with you? And also, what would be some of your parting tips or suggestions? You offered so much today. I mean, I'm from, from self-responsibility to self-trust, your invitation to find their own personal mantra, to setting intentions. I mean, this is just really rich. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And is there another parting word, or how can we stay connected to you, Rosie?
Well, thank you. I love being with you, and if I do it anytime you ask me. And what I want to share is that we have my daughter and I wrote this. It's called the Love is Kind pledge. It's an empowerment pledge. So all like you can make it think of it like a whole series of mantras. And you can get that. It's on the website. I have a link. There'll be a link in the show notes for you, but loveiskind.com/pledge. And we wrote that because it's how we felt. I am worthy. I deserve, to speak my mind, right? To be able to speak and just share my voice. And it's really beautifully well written. You can get a beautiful copy. You sign it, and then you can get your printer. I would suggest you get printed in color because we have little red hearts around it and things like that. So I suggest that. And I think what I would like to end is that you deserve to be treated with kindness. And it starts, my dear friend, by first being kind to yourself.
Yeah, it's yes, so important and so profound and so simple, but not so easy sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yes. And that's the work I do, right? And just help them really understand that.
Yeah, yep. And it is a journey, and each and every one of us deserves love is kind and from the inside out.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Rosie, it's been such a pleasure. We will have you back on again. I'm so thrilled that you were available and that you made time to be with us and share your beautiful wisdom and your beautiful journey and your beautiful inspiration, because we all need it all the time. It doesn't matter. Again, it's not a destination. We're all on this journey
Mhm.
of life, and all the little different tips and tools that we can pick up along the way are
Yes.
helpful. So from my heart to yours, I love you so
Thank
much, and I'm
you.
for this time together, and I really appreciate you so much. And until next time, have a beautiful and blessed day. Thanks so much. Bye for now.